And yeah, keep letting people in. I'm gonna make us have a big screen. Okay, I think we are ready to go.
Okay, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Metropolitan Plan Organization meeting of the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commissions. Could I have a motion to accept the minutes of March 26th?
So moved. Second, Mr. Chairman.
Is it,
I
thank you.
missed
Are
the
there
so
any
moved.
questions or
Bill
omissions?
Jean.
Bill Jean,
Seconded by Dan Williams.
thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Okay,
Mr. Chairman,
yes,
I actually do
okay.
you want to take an editorial comment now or later?
We'll take it.
Oh,
On
yeah,
that.
well, yeah, give it your best.
I noticed in reviewing them, you had asked how, to Mr. Lambert about the planning for the solar eclipse. He said they were planning for 2 years.
Yes,
And
in
yet-
advance.
And yet traffic was stopped in the notch at 2:30 in the morning. I mean, what were they doing for 2 years?
I think the little I know of the area, and I don't mean to speak for them, the notch has always been an issue. It's structural.
Yeah,
It's
it's
the
only one
geography
lane
here.
through the notch.
where you have four, and from what I remember my history, you have four lanes of 93 now, but when they've always attempted to expand the notch, it's been blocked because of its importance geographically. And
Right,
that's what
right.
it's all about. And I'll throw out an editorial. The fact you could not get to the North Country by any other way but driving, if there's a rail line.
Oh, there we go.
See, so you opened your mouth.
You're welcome. No, you're welcome.
Anyway,
Thank you.
There's a PDF.
I'm sure it's helicopters. Okay, Sylvia. There's a motion and a second. Could you do roll call and approval?
Okay, here we go, roll call. All right, gentlemen, saying Peter.
Excuse me.
We're starting with roll call. In Auburn, we are happy to see Paula Martzlow.
Here.
In Bedford, we have Bill Jean.
Yes, President.
Excellent. No one from Candia yet, I don't believe. Yes, this is present and voting. Chester, we have Deb Munson in the house. In Deerfield, from Deerfield, we have Fred McGarry.
President and abstain.
Thank you. And Errol Rhodes.
President and yes.
Thank you. From Derry, we have Jeff Moulton.
President abstain.
Thank you. And Richard Tripp.
President and yes.
From Francistown, Linda Kuhnhart. Excellent. And Gary Schneckenberg.
President and yes.
From Goffstown online, we have Jacob LaFontaine.
Present and yes.
Thank you. Good to see you, Jacob, and Colleen Mayo.
Good morning, present and abstain.
Thanks, Colleen.
Thank you.
No one from Hooksett yet, but from Londonderry online, since I'm already facing that way, Brian Battaglia.
Present and abstain.
Thank you. And in-house, we have Deb Levens.
Present and abstain.
From Manchester, we have Peter Capano in-house,
President and yes.
Ray Clement,
President yes.
Dan O'Neill.
President, yes.
From New Boston, we have Mark Sunin online. Mark is maybe stepped away for a moment from his desk. No one from where? From Wyndham in-house, we have Peter Griffin
Obviously, President, yes.
and Ed Lapointe.
President and yes.
And we have a couple of folks that I am not sure of. Mark Snyder.
Yeah, I'm just an observer from Bedford.
Oh, an observer from Bedford. Thank you for sharing that.
Welcome,
And
Mark.
welcome. And also Aaron Eaton.
Hi, I'm observing as a UNH student.
Oh, welcome, Aaron. Pleased to have you. So that's Bedford and UNH. Let's see, anyone else I have not gotten. And from New Hampshire DOT, we have in-house Lucy St. John.
Good afternoon, everyone. Abstain.
Hello, Lucy.
I believe.
Sylvia?
Goffstown Royal.
No, she did it again.
Goffstown Royal. Yes, yeah.
Yeah.
You always slip in under almost a couple of guys.
There is some like shoot she comes up on. All right, from Goffstown in-house, surprising me yet again, is our own Barbara Griffin.
Okay, thank you, Sylvia. Is there any old business
Oh, no.
from old people? No. Okay, moving right along. Nate, would you like to go over, TIP amendment number 5, please?
All right. Well, good morning, everyone. Let me see if I can share my screen effectively here.
Nick, haven't we seen this?
You certainly have. Can everybody see this in full screen online?
Yes.
All right,
Yes.
very good. So today we are here to consider TIP amendment number 5. And today is actually the public hearing for TIP amendment number 5. As a reminder, I'm going to hide these floating meeting controls. As a reminder, we worked with our colleagues at New Hampshire DOT on the development of TIP amendment number 5. There were 4 projects in the region included in TIP amendment number 5. We reviewed those all in detail at last month's MPO meeting. And we, subsequent to that meeting, released the draft TIP amendment number 5 on April 8th for a 10-day comment period. That 10-day comment period came and went. We did not receive any comments on any of the 4 projects that were included in draft TIP amendment number 5. Today is your public hearing to consider adoption of TIP amendment number 5. And at this point, Mr. Chairman, I would ask, I'm happy to go through the 4 projects again, if people would like me to do so. Otherwise, if you just want to open the floor to public comments, and that's fine too.
Why don't I do the latter? Are there any comments from anyone in the, either online or in-house, on TIP amendment number 5?
Oh, you're welcome.
Could you do a quick overview?
Sure. Of the projects? Yeah. So the first project was Bedford 40664. This is the widening of Route 3 from Hawthorne Drive North to the Manchester Airport Access Road. The amendment here is delaying the start of right-of-way phase work from fiscal 25 to 26. This is to reflect the current project development schedule. Engineering phase consulting work is scheduled for Governor and Council approval in May, with engineering work to start shortly thereafter. For that reason, it's more likely that the right-of-way phase of that project would be hitting full stride in fiscal 26 rather than 25. It's likely that there'll still be an engineering phase work before 26. In Goffstown, project 41597, which is a local bridge replacement on Center Street over Harry Brook. This is to remove that project from the TIP. This is being removed at the request of the town of Goffstown due to the anticipated cost of replacing that bridge, and even with the local share of the cost of that bridge being more than their CIP can handle at this time. So Goffstown wants to press pause on that project and remove it from the TIP at this point.
If I could just comment on that for a minute, you
Sure.
might want to have this discussion with your DPW directors in your communities. Goffstown has indeed requested to remove it. I checked with our DPW director. The state has been using different kinds of culvert replacements than were used when this project was done. I'd say at this point, maybe 20 years ago. And the cost of the different culvert replacement that is now allowed is significantly less than what the project would have been, even with the monetary share for the project. And the projects with the state are just escalating in cost at a huge rate. So DPW thinks they can do it a different way for less money, managing the job in-house. So when you see big projects come up in town that involve these kind of culverts, you might want to ask whether they're just replacing what's there, or have they looked into whether other options are available?
Well, thank you for that context, Barbara. That's helpful. Well, no matter how many times I try to hide the floating meeting controls, they keep popping back up. All right. There is a statewide program for the maintenance and preservation of tier 1 and 2 bridges. Tier 1 and 2 bridges are the bridges that are on the interstate system and the major state roads in New Hampshire. This is to increase the construction phase funding in fiscal years 24 through 26 for this statewide program. I won't go project by project through everything that the statewide program funds, but one of the key projects is actually within our region. It is addressing the preservation needs of 5 bridges in both Manchester and Hooksett on I-93 northbound. So that's a significant project by itself within this larger program. So stay tuned for those bridges on I-93 north, getting preservation work soon.
Hey, quick question.
Yep.
Just because I was on it last night, that Addy Bridge that goes over, kind of cuts between Bicentennial and Hooksett Road. Once that looked like they're getting ready to start. Is that one of them?
I think so. I'd have to double check the scope,
Okay,
but
I just have a drive on it and they say the Addy Bridge is gonna be closed.
I know that this project is imminent, so it's
Okay.
likely that is one of them, but I'll double check on that question. And then lastly, in Ware, the River Road over the Piscataquag River, another local bridge project. This is going to see right of way and construction phase work being postponed from 25 to 26. This is again because of the project development schedule. The town of Ware has been in the process of selecting an engineering consultant to do engineering phase work. I know that is imminent, their selection of that engineering consultant. So PE phase work will be beginning shortly. And then that will continue. And for that reason, the right of way and construction phase work is more likely to happen in fiscal 26 than fiscal 25. So this is an amendment that was discussed between the town and New Hampshire DOT. And that's it, Jeff. Those are the 4 projects in tip amendment number 5. Pretty straightforward as tip amendments
Any
go.
questions from anyone in the room? Any questions from those of you calling in? Nate, thank you very much.
We would welcome a motion to adopt tip amendment number 5.
Oh, okay, I'm sorry, you had information only here.
So move.
Okay, motion seconded. All those in favor? Calling in, okay.
Pam, did you get the motion and?
I did, thank you.
Okay, great.
Opposed? Abstentions? It's unanimous, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Don't leave me too quickly here because I'm on for the next thing. And I think I put it here.
Here, let's see. This is what you want to share?
Yeah,
All right, I'm gonna close this just to get a tab. And we'll go to this. We will share the screen. And we'll go to this,
okay.
and now they should
That
be able
is
to see it.
not the first slide, though. Can our home viewers see the screen?
Yes,
Oh, great. Wonderful. Okay. Wait for the chair.
Sylvia, you're not in presentation mode, though.
Okay, Nate.
it's a PDF, Zach.
I know, but you can make it full screen, is my point.
I don't,
Let's see. How we do that? Is that down? Is this?
full screen right there.
No.
While you're doing that, I just.
It's a, if there's a.
Oh,
thing.
full screen mode. There you go. Okay.
There you go.
We have nothing.
Perfect.
I don't know what you guys can see on. at home.
Oh, I think it's coming through now.
Well, it's
Alright.
huge.
Huge. Okay, yeah, maybe go back to whatever you were doing before. That should be fine.
How does it look now?
Legible. So let's go with that.
Legible.
Legible.
Let's try one more thing. Let's try width to width. All right, no, that was a complete failure. All right. Well, I tried. This is probably the best you're gonna.
How does it look now?
It's good. It's good enough. We're fine.
Okay,
Sylvia, go ahead.
you're ready for me.
Yes, we're ready.
So, okay, I am a lousy substitute for Tammy Zamoyski, our bicycling and pedestrian guru. However, she is out in the field at the moment, so I volunteered. And so we're sharing just a few moments on New Hampshire Cycling Awareness Month. It used to be in May, you'd have a bike day or a bike to work day or a bike week. Well, now May is Cycling Awareness Month. The planning commissions have, I think, partnered with Bike Walk Alliance of New Hampshire. And they are, and you can see this is, I think, a screenshot from their website. And it shows a whole host of events in May and all over. Here's one in Concord. The North Country Council has a rail trail ride. Here's another one in Littleton. So all of these, if you go to their website, and I'm sorry, we're not seeing this completely, but you can go to their website and see on their calendar all the different events. In the back of the room, I have here one of those, which is the Tour de New Hampshire, which is fun. Gary just shared with me on the way in, Tour de Francistown. Well, now we have Tour de New Hampshire, and
That's a better ring in Francistown.
yes, so I don't know if these are every Sundays, but once a week there is a rail trail ride. Starting that one on the 4th, so that must be every Saturday. In North Country Council, the one in our area is May 11th. The Trails of the Queen City here in Manchester. And so there's another one. Let's see, Rail Trails of White, and it's cut off. White Mountains, and also the Great North Woods. So check out this calendar at the Bike Walk Alliance. One of the things that the Queen City Bike Collective does in tandem with the Manchester Taco Tour folks, and I believe that's the Manchester Chamber event, is they offer this free valet bike parking. Evidently, I know when Tammy presented this taco tour is the biggest one, I think, in the country. So, and I know, Cam, you've survived the taco tour, correct?
Barely, yeah.
Barely.
It's packed. I think. The city has done a really good job. There are a lot of people who show up, and the lines are pretty lengthy, but
Yeah.
over the past couple of years, they've really
So
figured that out.
So if you want to bike in or park nearby and then bike in, you can go and find the bike valet. So that's one thing that the Queen City Bike Collective.
Yeah,
does.
20-30,000 people. It's sort of.
There's a
it's
lot.
So much fun.
It's, yeah.
If you like standing in line.
Well, and you must really like your tacos too.
Cam, who are you kidding? It's the tacos, but it's the shot of tequila. Right?
Oh, there you go. Starting rumors about Cam already.
It was a father, good father once.
One of the things we're doing is with New Boston. This stems from our Pathways to Play project. And we're working with the town on a bike rodeo. So that's one of the events in May we're working on. I mentioned the tour to New Hampshire, so please pick up the brochure on your way out. If we run out, I can easily make you new ones. There's also, one of the, oh, this is the one, the Rail Trails of the Queen City. Again, that's Saturday, May 11th, starting at 10. I've always wanted to do that. I have not done that yet.
Sylvia, is that start down on the river? Is that what that was showing? or-
I believe so, and you know, as I said, poor substitute for Taylor.
Yeah, you did say that.
But thank you for
Oh,
agreeing,
yeah.
Peter. Thank you. Thank you. This is a cruel group. Cruel group.
Peter, who plugged you in?
I don't know.
Oh, that's funny. Anyway, I bet you though, you can find that route online because I know I've looked into that route. So go to the Bike Walk Alliance group, hit this on their calendar. I bet you go straight to that.
They'll probably go south along the river to the river walk and then hands over the Merrimack Bridge and take the Piscat Trail all the way to Goffstown if you want.
We'll
That's
see.
probably what.
I will be waiting for us.
Yeah, probably. We'll be waiting.
It's.
Toll booth.
Oh, yeah, I see how this is getting worked now. In mid-May, this looks like the May 16th. The Hooksett will be doing a grand opening on, I think it's 1.5 miles of a newly completed trail. So they're very excited about celebrating that. The actual Bike to Work Day breakfast is happening on May 17th from 7 to 9. And we're going to help with a table at Manchester City Plaza. And I'm looking at the Manchester folks. Evidently, there's a crisis
Oh, no.
about that there's no food for this table yet. So I'm looking at the three of you. Drum some business up. We can't do that.
We're gonna re-talk to our council here.
So there needs to be some food at that table, but
Is my toll booth gonna be?
okay, you work that out, Barbara. Let's see, also, an annual Children's Safety Day that is happening on the 18th, and I believe they're even giving away free bike helmets, so that's gonna be a really fun one. So you can see all the different ones. Oh, here's our Tour de Francistown.
Say something that both these gravel grinder routes are, they're pretty gut busting. You know, the 50 mile in particular has like a 5,000-foot elevation change. But we've had over 100 cyclists the last couple of years take part in that between the two of them. Because a couple of people, despite our best indications, people register online via this organization called Bike Reg, and the poster we have, the flyer has a QR code on it. People who weren't even like, probably should not have done the 25 mile fame and did drive the 25 mile. So this year, in addition to the 25 and 50 mile gravel grinder, which is on gravel and class 6 roads, we have a 25 mile road ride added as well. For people who, for whom I include myself among them. Last year I went out and just after the event, took my mountain bike and started on the 25 mile course, and I went about like 6 miles and said, screw this. I was not ready for that. But it has, so this year it has a 25 mile road ride, a hard surface. It'd be a little less taxing. And food, there is food provided at the end, and we, for the third year in a row, we have a special 1-day license to provide beer from the New Hampshire Liquor Commission.
Nice.
Wow, okay, riding with beer, fantastic,
So Barbara, did your toll have beer?
right.
Any type of protection provided, like an ambulance service and stuff, that follow the groups around? In case of an accident or heart attack?
I can only speak for our ride, and I assume that people are doing the same thing, who organize these others. We notify the police and fire rescue departments of the route and the times of the ride, and we have someone essentially play sweeper, for the gravel grinder, who has a four-wheel drive vehicle that can go along the entire, route, on the Class 6 roads and make sure there are no stragglers. We also have, registration. People have to sign in at both the start and the completion, so we know if anyone, did not make it back, which became problematic last year because 3 people decided that they were done, they were going home, didn't come back to sign in.
Oh,
So we were out searching for them for several hours after the event. But yeah, I think that's what we do, and I assume to get the permissions to do it, that other communities would do the same thing.
good question, though. I'll ask,
Yeah, I think
Tammy.
it's just for the safety of people. That always
Yeah.
happens with these events. You're reading about it all the time.
Yeah, good question. All right, oh, wait, we also have, on May 26th, New Boston has a rail trail ride. That one looks family friendly. And if you have an event, you can actually email your info at bikewalkalliancenewhampshire.org and they'll tell you how to get your event, or you can also just let Tammy know.
Any questions? We'll put you on the spot, Sylvia. Any questions for Sylvia? From either in the room, or if you could close it off so we could see from in the room or calling in. Any questions for Sylvia? No, I guess that's it. Sylvia, thank you.
And thank you. And I'm just noting that Art Rugg has also joined.
Could I have a motion to adjourn the MPO meeting, please? So moved. Is there a second? All those in favor?
All right, you had a question?
Oh, I'm sorry.
I
Yes.
just wanted to comment, he had asked about the non-ride, so there was right before I left here, was a notice posted that Bridgeport will begin on Monday, April 29th, and I can share this with you.
Please take it here.
I'm curious, I was on it last
Right.
night and it said, they look like they're getting ready to start, so.
Not right at the bridge, in the post office, up at the motors, and everything towards the West Ellis Avenue, by Centennial Drive, all the work form. Supposedly it's the last 10 weeks, and it's going to accept us.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, Sylvia, let me call to order the Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission meeting. Could I have a motion to accept the minutes of March 26th, please?
Second, Mr. Chairman.
Is there a second? Any corrections or omissions? Mr. Capano, any?
Clean and green.
Editorial comments? No? Did we lose everyone?
I was just letting
They
Ed
all
log
quit.
in here, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, I figured everybody probably shouldn't watch Ted enter his.
Yes, exactly.
Sylvia, could you
Thank
do a roll call and approval of minutes, please?
So Nate, to share this again?
Yeah.
I just need the screen before we go.
Yeah, they gotta do minutes and stuff.
Okay, that's fine.
All right, let's start with who's in the house. We have from Auburn, Paula. From Bedford, Bill G.
President, yes.
Chester, Deb Munson. From Deerfield, Fred McGarry
Present and abstain.
and Errol Rhodes.
Yeah, when we get there, just
From
to share.
Gary, we
back.
have Jeff Moulton
Present and abstain.
and Richard Tripp.
Fine.
From Francistown, we have Linda Kuhnhart
Yes.
and Gary Schneckenberg.
Yep.
From Goffstown, we have Barbara Griffin.
Yes.
Online, from Goffstown, we have Jacob LaFontaine,
President, yes.
and we have Colleen Mayu.
Present and abstain.
Still nobody from Hooksett, and from Londonderry in-house, we have Deb Levens. Online, we have Brian Battaglia
Present and abstain.
and Art Rugg.
I'm present virtually and yes on the minutes.
From Manchester in-house, we have Peter Capano
Present and yes.
and Ray Clement
Present, yes.
and Dan O'Neill.
President and yes.
In New Boston, we have Mark Sunin.
Here and yes.
Thank you. In-house, we from Wyndham, we have Peter Griffin, our chair,
Obviously, President, yes.
and Ed LaPointe. And I believe that is it. Oh, and I didn't mention Jessica Wilson's here, so thank you for joining us.
I got a thumbs up. Pam, are you all good on who's done first and seconds? Okay, good.
Okay, so we have to recognize our guests from DOT.
Oh, well, usually Lucy leaves, but thank you for still being here. I'm not used to that, Lucy. Oh, you have a great speaker, which is of interest to all of us.
Okay, Lucy, thank you. Okay, Sylvia, would you like to introduce our eminent speaker?
I would. Well, I don't know that actually Ted Kitchens needs introductions.
Live up to that. I very rarely use the word eminent.
But
Feel very blessed.
we are very lucky. In fact, it was the other day, Dave and I were on the phone with Ted and I convinced him to come talk to our group. It just happened to be, there were so many different announcements about what was happening at the airport. And I said, Ted, can I talk you into coming back to the commission and sharing with our commissioners what's going on at the airport? And I twisted his arm just enough and he said, yeah.
I think you had me at pizza.
So I think that's all I need. We love having Ted here. We really appreciate his time. Take it away, Ted.
Thank you, and if the commissioners don't mind, I'm just going to talk from back here. So everybody on the screen can see me as well, but it's always great to be back in front of the commission. We enjoy a great partnership with Sylvia and Nate and all the commissioners here, and you guys play a vital role in planning for the transportation infrastructure for Southern New Hampshire, and certainly do appreciate everybody here. I work with Nate on the Transportation Council. He's seen some of this presentation already. Of course, with Sylvia and her staff with the freight plan, and then of course all of our Manchester representatives over there, including Alderman O'Neill, which some of this is first time being seen. So this is not policy decisions or policy statements. That all has to go through the Board of Mayor and Alderman. So this is just a little more of a sneak peek of some of the things that we're doing and thinking about as an airport. Hopefully I can have everybody's attention as we go through the market update, because as Sylvia said, there's been a lot going on at the airport over the last few months, including 2 new carriers and an expanding one. And then we'll go over some strategic objectives. I want to kind of go back in time to where we were right after the pandemic, what our strategic plan looked like, and then kind of go over some of our current strategic initiatives and outline 2 of them that are, I think, of importance for transportation planning. One is our airport electrical master plan study, and that is all about how do we accommodate the future of electric transportation, both on the ground and in the air. And then our airport carbon accreditation study, which is a part of our efforts to at least map our scope 1, scope 2, and scope 3 GHG emissions and get a handle on where we are. And then of course Q&A, but I always like to have these things interactive. So if you have a question, stop, we'll go down that road and answer some questions and see where it leads us. So this is the popular perception I always hear. I love flying Manchester. I just can't get anywhere where I want to go, right? That this is all we can take you, which are the 12 nonstop destinations. In reality, this is what we can give you. Okay, let's just rewind that. Perception, reality. All those destinations, 237 plus the 12 nonstop, so close to 250 destinations are one stop or nonstop away from Manchester, including 28 cities in Europe and the Middle East, 20 cities down in the Caribbean, 15 cities in Mexico, Central America, and South America, and on and on and on. Now, yeah, you have to take a stop, right? I understand that. But I always like to say to people, you may be thinking that you're flying nonstop out of Boston, but your first flight's in your car. Okay? Give me that. I can get you through Charlotte or Chicago or DC or Philadelphia a lot quicker than you can get down to Boston. And honestly, in a lot of these cities, like, I don't know, Dubai over there, you're not going to have a nonstop flight, right? So you want to connect anyways out of Boston, so you might as well give that to me. And that way, if anything happens on your connecting flight, you're not 3,000 miles on the other side of an ocean, stranded in Heathrow. You're maybe in Philadelphia, right? A little bit easier to get home. So looking at some DOT data, you know, the top 50 markets that are trade area, which think of a trade area like a watershed, okay? We talked about catchment area in the past. I found catchment area is a little bit too wonky of a word. Trade area sounds a little bit better. Of the top 50 markets that our trade area demanded or bought tickets to in the last domestic, I should say, in the third quarter of 2023, we offer fares lower than Boston than over half of those. All those green dots that you see, the average fare, the median fare, I should say, out of Manchester is cheaper than the median fare out of Boston. Now, the perception though is that you can't find the cheap fare out of Manchester. And let me just give you a little bit of inside baseball. The reason why that is the case is that most airline, or actually all the airlines, give each flight to each city. So let's say there's 4 flights to Manchester to Boston, Baltimore. They look at those as 4 individual markets. Okay, so you think you just play that out through all the national network, there are an infinitesimal amount of, or actually not infinitesimal, a very large amount of markets that each airline is trying to optimize to its maximum profitability. So if you think about, you know, free markets, it's supply and demand, right? But in that first flight to Baltimore, there's a finite supply. On the second flight to Baltimore is a finite supply. It's called the number of seats on an airplane. As demand is increasing, what happens to price? It goes up, right? Until you find that equilibrium point and then things settle out. Usually that break-even point for airlines is about 80% full. So if we have 2,500 seats a day, we reach 80% full a lot sooner than Boston with 70,000 seats a day, right? So it's not that you can't find the fare, it's just you got to be out in advance. You got to be before that, before we sell 80% of our tickets. Now, no one knows where that is, right? It's not 2 seats left before we hit 80%, right? That's not advertised, but I always like to say to people, try to get out and book 4 to 6 weeks ahead of your travel date. You can usually find the fare you want at the price you want to the destination you're trying to go to out of Manchester. If you're standing on the couch on Monday and say, hey, where do you want to go this weekend? Let's go hit the road. You're not going to find that fare out of Manchester. You probably don't even find that fare anymore out of Boston. So some new airline announcements, several new airlines. This first one that we announced, I'll take them in order here, is Sun Country Airlines, which is a interesting airline in the sense that they take the aircraft and they split them into 3 different categories. They have a commercial side, a cargo side, so they actually fly for Amazon in Amazon colors. And then they also have a charter side. So they do a lot of NCAA charters, a lot of team charters. They do a lot of casino charters. You've probably seen this airplane flying around the skies if you've looked closely, because in fact, it was just flying out of Manchester yesterday on a casino route that went from Hartford to Manchester, Manchester to Atlantic City. And I think it's coming back this weekend to bring people back from Atlantic City. So they do a lot of casino charters, particularly with Beau Rivage down in Atlantic City. So you'll see that. They've seen good numbers out of here for the charter activities. So they said, hey, let's give it a shot on the commercial side. We started talking to Sun Country back in 2021, shortly after the pandemic. And this could be a good strategic play for us too, because there's an unwritten rule inside of Delta's headquarters that no one flies to Minneapolis that they don't fly to. Of course, we all know we lost Delta during the pandemic, right? So this may just lure Delta back to at least a bid. And sure enough, after 9 rejections by Delta Airlines to meeting requests, I'm happy to say that we're meeting with them May 22nd. They finally said yes. So hopefully they won't tell us something other than no. Or they would have said no to the meeting. So we'll see. But sure enough, as soon as we launch this, they started accepting the meeting request. The next one is Breeze Airways. Now flying MHT is a breeze. We always know this is easy, but this is an airline that really thrives itself on being seriously nice. They like to say they're putting the easy back into travel, and you'll see why they say that. It's very tech-centered. It's founded by a serial aviation executive, David Neeleman. Maybe you've all heard that name. He founded JetBlue Airways. Okay, and then got fired in 2008. After an unfortunate incident in Hartford where about 4 airplanes got stuck in the snowstorm. If everybody remembers that, for about 6 hours. The board ushered him out of the very airline that he founded. So he went down to Brazil started an airline down there that's still flying globally called Azul. Something about blue in this gentleman, we love blue, this airplane, two airplanes are blue. And now, he's back in the United States, he's, like I said, Azul is still flying, he still is running that, and now he's, reforming another airline called Breeze. So if you like JetBlue, you're gonna love Breeze Airways. So they have 3 types of seats on board, it's really easy to remember, nice, nicer, and nicest. 30-inch seat pitch on the nice seats. So think of Spirit Airlines. If you ever were in the back of Spirit, just add another inch to your kneecaps. That could go a long way. The nicer is 33-inch seat pitch. So if you've ever been in just a standard Southwest seat, add 2 inches to your kneecaps. And then the nicest is a very generous 39-inch seat pitch. I mean, that's almost a domestic first class seat. And the most interesting thing is this 2x2 seating configuration in the front, but then a 2x3 seating configuration in the back. So what that means is 2 seats on one side of the aisle, 3 seats on the other side of the aisle. Most aircraft, when you get into the economy, it's 3x3. This is a 2x3. So if you're a family of 2 or a family of 4, you can get on that 2 seat side, and you can actually have a nice little piece of the cabin to yourself. You don't have to buy the nicest seat in order to get the 2x2, okay? May have to, you're sacrificing a little bit on the knee space, but still 33 inches is very comfortable for most domestic flights. And then the most interesting thing is these are windows with serious views. So taking you might have 11 by 17 sheet of paper, hold it up in front of you. That's the size of the window. So if you're claustrophobic, you want to feel like you're in an open space, these are the largest windows, I think, on any aircraft that's flying in the sky right now, even your large wide bodies. So it's going to give you a very spacious feel in the cabin as well. So they're starting June 14th. You can scan the QR code because they're on sale now. I'll take you to flybreeze.com. Starting June 14th, so to Orlando. They'll be twice weekly to Orlando, so they're going to backfill a little bit of the unfortunate loss of Spirit here, temporarily loss of Spirit. And then Charleston as well, and they're very ecstatic at how Charleston's selling right now. They're very happy with the market response to that. They're saying we're booking almost like a market in the second year. The demand is so strong. Orlando, we need to pick it up. They're saying it's not alarm bells aren't going off yet, but they expected to see more.
Ted, what is the prime airline from here to Orlando?
There's still gonna be Southwest,
Yeah.
right? I mean, you got once daily, sometimes twice daily, but this is going to give you a cheaper option. And I think you can actually pick your seat. Unlike with Southwest where you get, the boarding zone, right?
Yeah.
This one, you actually have an assigned seat. So if you don't want that center seat, you don't have to worry about it, all right? And then they'll have something on September 5th called a breeze through flight to Tampa. And what that is anybody been on a Southwest flight, they say, even if you're not, even if it doesn't apply to you, but you pull into the gate and say, hey, if you're on the aircraft that's going to Tampa, this is your aircraft, stay on board. They have the same thing. Okay, so it's a one-stop, no change of plane service. So you'll fly from Manchester to Charleston. Some people will get off, some people will get on. If you're going to Tampa, you stay on the airplane, then you go on to Tampa. We think that will eventually transition to a direct nonstop flight, and there's a difference. Technically, Manchester to Tampa is a direct flight, but it's not a nonstop. There's a difference. And then October 2nd, they'll start nonstop flights to Fort Myers on a seasonal basis. So far, they're pretty happy with the way that's starting to book. It's obviously further out, but they're starting to see some seats booked on that as well. These are all big airplanes. These are not tiny airplanes. These are about the same size as the Spirit aircraft, if you've ever seen that, okay? It's just a little bit of a narrower fuselage. That's why they can't get the 3.3 in, but that's to your benefit as a consumer. So here's just some interior shots. So the nice seats are the yellow ones, the nicer are the red ones, the nicest are the blue ones. Every seat has in that bottom middle row, USB-C power, 120 volt power. So you can charge all your devices up. You got a full-size table tray. I think if you get the nicest seat, you actually get the alcohol and a beverage included in it. And then if you notice on the left-hand photo, obviously JetBlue is known for their in-seat entertainment. Most airlines are going away from that because why should they incur the cost of the TV? Why should they incur the cost of the maintenance of the TV? Why should they incur the cost of carrying the TV? Because they still have to fly the TV, even if that seat is not occupied by a passenger. When most everybody has a tablet, right? So let's invest in this little shelf that comes down, and these are the only seats in the air that have this, because these seats were specifically designed for Breeze Airways. That has this tablet that comes down. American has a small one for your phone on some aircraft, but this is a big one for your tablet. Okay, so you can put your tablet there. As you can tell, she has it plugged into the back seat. So you don't have cords, running all over the aisle. You can actually plug it into the back of the seat. So a really nice experience. It's got all the ambient lighting. Everybody likes the blue lighting. When you get on the airplane, it's a really, really, really good airline. So just a summary of some things you get, they do bundle things, but what you get for the bundle, it doesn't feel like nickel and dime. If you look, I just highlighted some. Personal item is included in all fare classes. Carry-on bag is included on every class other than basic economy, which is their no flex fare, which is the first column. Check bags start at the nicer bundle with one. You go to the nicest bundle, you get 2 check bags for that price. And then in-flight Wi-Fi is free if you're in the nicer or the nicest. Not all aircraft are currently outfitted with Wi-Fi. That's because David Neeleman and his brilliance, he sold airplanes that he had under Azul to himself over in Breeze, and he retrofitted those, and those were old aircraft that Azul had. Those are now, he just did that just to get started. Those are now exiting the fleet, and they're getting new airplanes once a month from Airbus. These are all brand new airplanes. The average aircraft age, I think, for them is about 3 months. So chances are you're going to get on almost close to a brand spanking new airplane.
And his fleet's all Airbus?
It's all Airbus, yes, sir. Yep. So, and then our growing airline, which is Avelo, they are doubling the capacity to Raleigh-Durham. I remember when we announced that, everybody was like, Raleigh? What's in Raleigh? Well, we are filling it up. We just passed Research Triangle. There's a tie there, the biofabrication cluster here to the medical research that's going on down there. There are a lot of ties between those two, but it's just doesn't come natural to people. And I'm getting a lot of the same response to Greenville. Greenville right now, that's the picture of Greenville up in the upper left-hand corner. That's not Manchester. Got mountains in the background, a river in the front. Dan, look how they embrace their waterfront. They got a nice little pedestrian bridge that goes over the waterfall there.
Greenville was a model for our arena. That was on.
You're absolutely right. And that anchors downtown. They have a Red Sox high A team. So that one level, half a level down below the AA Fisher Cats is there. So you actually can see future Portland Sea Dogs. They go from Greenville to Portland to Worcester, and then hopefully to Fenway. So a lot of cultural ties there between Manchester and Greenville. We think there's a lot of demand, and we're booking pretty well. I just talked to Avelo last week, and we're above market average. So they're pretty happy with where we stand, but those flights start May 10th. Raleigh, they're very happy. They started with 2 times weekly, now they're going to 4 times weekly, and we're filling up those extra 2 rotations perfectly fine. So we're only one of 11 airports out of 378 airports in the United States that have both Breeze and Avelo. And let me tell you, we are the smallest of those airports by a factor of 2. The next smallest airport is Greenville, Spartanburg, and they're twice our size in terms of the planes. So why do you think that is? Bill, you're a businessman. It's opportunity. These are startups, okay? They're young, they're hungry, but they're risk averse. Very risk averse right now. They cannot afford to miss that. So you're looking for one of 3 things if I'm a startup airline person. I'm looking for places that have perpetual demand, perennial demand, right? That's Orlando and that's Vegas. You could put 1 million flights into both of those markets and still not have enough capacity. You're looking at areas that are in high growth regions. Sarasota. How many of you have been to Sarasota recently? It is booming. I mean, they're building thousands upon thousands of homes. Or in the Carolinas, right? Those areas are booming. Raleigh and Greenville are one of the top 2 fastest growing metro regions in the country. Or areas that have tremendous untapped potential, like us. That's what they see in us. Because the best thing that we have going for us as a market is what we used to be.
Yeah.
We used to be 2.25 million employments. Nothing has changed. Our population's gotten higher since 2005. Per capita income has increased, gross regional product has increased, unemployment has decreased. Those are the four social determinants of demand for aviation. So our demand is actually sky high. We're just doing a really poor job of capturing that demand right now. So this is perhaps a once in a lifetime opportunity. Let's look at the two networks that Avelo and Breeze have out of two markets that they consider their focus cities in New England. So those are the cities that they serve out of those two markets. The purple lines are Avelo routes, the white bluish lines are Breeze routes. So there are 8 cities that Breeze only serves. Those are the green dots. There are 16 cities that only Avelo serves. Those are the red dots. And there are 9 cities that they both serve. Look at that list. That's what's in front of us as a market. There's nothing stopping us from becoming that, except ourselves. All right, so who's going to Charleston? Who's going to go to flybreeze.com and buy the ticket to Orlando or going to Greenville? Right, go find a new favorite place, go find another favorite restaurant, or I mean, Greenville's got this beautiful free jazz festival coming up June 5th and 6th. I think it's 7 different stages and like 50 different food trucks. They've taken their Elm Street and they've closed it and turned it permanently. They closed it and they turned it into a pedestrian, tree lined entertainment venue, food truck area. And every night, every weekend at least, they got something going on downtown. So we have 13 certificated United States flag carriers, and we have 7 of them, folks. I'm not a math major, but that's a majority. Before we only had 4. Then we got down to 2 during the pandemic when Delta and United left. United came back, Spirit came in, that woke the market up. That started conversations. When I first got here, Dan knows this, we had maybe 5, 6 airline meetings each time we went to these speed dating conferences that we go to. Now I'm getting 12 to 13. Because, and that changed when Spirit came into the market. It put Manchester back on the map. We had quite literally faded off the map. But that was us planting our flag saying, no, there's a market here. It's a shame that Spirit has taken a temporary pause. We were only maybe 10 passengers a day away from making that thing a home run. And we lose 35 a day still to Boston to fly Spirit to Orlando. So it's not the airline, it's not the market, it's behavior. It is consumer behavior. And guess what? The Spirit flight out of Boston to Orlando, worse times and more expensive. But people are still doing it. So get your phones out, sign up for, if you want to not hear Ted speak, again, sign up for our customer newsletter, and you will get first crack at any new air service announcements, any fare specials that are available to Manchester Airport through our airlines. We put the parking garage on sale for 2 weeks in the summer. You'll be the first to know. We also are doing our e-newsletter. All right, any questions on, I mean, that's a lot, right? A lot of changes, but a lot of this all seems like it's coming together all at once. That's like it's manna from heaven. But this is actually the result of about 5 years of nonstop effort that we had a 2-year pause in the middle of, called the pandemic, right? I think a lot of this would have happened 3 years ago if it wasn't for that. Yes, ma'am.
Sadly, we all want to save money, and but I've heard comments about some of these airlines that, oh, you get on it and you can't do this, you can't do that, and like my sister-in-law just flew from California and not happy with the first flight.
Okay.
She flew from Southwest. But.
Yeah, and a lot of the airlines are doing this, and the reason why is it's called ancillary revenue in the airline world. The reason why is that's really the only thing that's keeping them in the black as an industry. Since 2000, the cumulative margin, operating margin, who owns businesses here? I know you do. Is 0.3%. Can you operate off of 0.3% operating margin for 23 years, 24 years? No.
People express on that.
Exactly. So if you take the ancillary revenue away, they're all negative 8, 9, 10% operating margins. So it's unfortunate, but if you add all those costs up and you compare them to a full fare carrier, you're saving money in the long run. Like the average fare for Spirit, even when you added in the seat and the bag and the chips and this and that other, was maybe about $300 round trip to Florida per person. The average on Southwest was closer to 500. So you're still saving $200. I think a lot of people get hooked on the $69 fare and they think that's what it's going to be.
Yeah.
And they don't realize that there will be these other things that you don't have to take them. You can say no to all of them.
Just like.
Except the seat. Not even that. You don't technically have to buy the seat. They'll do a roulette at the end and they'll just assign you. On Spirit. Yes, sir.
Is the home ports for all three new airlines on the East Coast, or like I think Breeze is from Connecticut, right?
Well, that's one of their hubs. They have another hub in Providence. Their headquarters though are in Salt Lake City.
Oh.
And Avelo's in Houston, Texas.
This is current board meeting.
So we are right now forecasting about 750,000 this year. Depends on how you measure it, calendar year, fiscal year. We run fiscal years. So for up to, I think more in calendar year, that's how the airlines think. So for calendar year, we're looking at about that number. But if these airlines do decide to continue to grow like Avelo or Breeze, because again, they see that opportunity. I think they are going to be aggressive here if we support them, right? They're not going to do that if we don't fill them up. And you may not like, the destinations you have right now, but if you want to get that LA route that they have out of Providence, you need to go to Charleston. You need to go to Orlando and support them, and then they'll continue to grow. I think if that happens, it could unleash a lot of capacity into this market. Because another reason why Delta and JetBlue and Allegiant all accept my meeting request could be that they're looking at what's happening here. And they're like, okay, we need to get in the game.
The good news is your infrastructure is designed and fabricated for 2 million plus.
And I've been selling that for 5 years that you do not have to worry about capital improvements here at the airport. In fact, you don't have to worry about the debt. I mean, we're down to less than 100 million in outstanding debt right now, and 60 of it is in my garage. So if you don't want to know why Lot C is not open, because I owe $60 million on the garage. And I'm putting about $1 million a year in preventative maintenance. I only make 10 million off of things, so it's a money pit right now. If I didn't have that albatross around my neck, things would be much better.
Ted,
Yes, sir.
when do you see build out for Logan and what might how that
Great question.
affect you? Because it seems to me they're using, just what I've observed, read in the paper, you are obviously expert, they're redoing the terminals, but how long can that go on for?
So we measure airfield or airport capacity in 3 ways: airfield, terminal, and roadway. Airfield, you can solve by bigger aircraft. And that's why you're seeing bigger and bigger airplanes. But that does nothing for your terminal or your roadside because you're just dumping more people into your terminal or onto your roadway. So Logan on the terminal and landside level service, they're at F, right? Airfield, they're probably C minus, maybe D. So the problem with Logan is where Logan is. You're never going to add another runway. I mean, you're not going to fill the Massachusetts Bay in for another runway, right? Good luck. You're leaving the court for a long time. So I see that day coming sooner than later. And I think that's another reason why some of these airlines are starting to plant their flag in Manchester. There's going to come a time in which the FAA is going to have to say spread out. Right now, they don't have the regulatory power to say that because we're in a deregulated aviation industry, but they're going to have to say no more. We can't continue to add more demand on the airfield. You got to start using the federal investments that we made in the regional airports. Yes, sir.
One of the things that Peter's question just triggered was thinking about connectivity to Boston itself. For about a decade, I was working and living in Southeast Michigan, and Delta had a cheap, fast flight right between Detroit and here. And a lot of the folks that I'd be on the plane with would choose to fly. They had nonstops to Boston, but they would avoid Boston if they possibly could.
Go to the tunnels.
Right, as the air traffic has sort of decreased with the airlines pulling out, do we in here in Manchester still have that connectivity to Boston downtown?
We do, and we see a lot of, thank you, sir, appreciate it. We do see a lot of that demand. For example, what convinced Avello on Greenville is that there was no Greenville-Boston route at all, nobody. Everybody in Greenville, does everybody know what is made in Greenville? Cars. Yes.
BMW.
All the X series, so if you have an X series, made in Greenville, Volvo's there now, and Mercedes. And now they've got their own cluster, because now they got all the component manufacturers starting to come in. So think of that demand, right? There's not a nonstop flight. So we said, hey, not that I like to sell this way, but we could be that, right? Because it's still economic impact to the state of New Hampshire, because that person is running a rental car, they're coming back, they're buying a hamburger, Coke, Snickers bar, whatever it may be. We get their federal funds. Federal funds are tied to where you get on an airplane. Doesn't matter where you bought the ticket from, it's where you get on the airplane. So we get those funds. And we know that once they figure out how good it is to fly to Manchester and how beautiful New Hampshire is, they may come back and say, hey, let's go explore this state, right? And so it could lead to follow-on trips.
Yeah.
So we still have that connectivity. I always like to tell the interstates, or tell the airlines that the interstates were widened both ways. They didn't just widen 93 southbound, they did northbound too. Right? And it doesn't need to be necessarily small to large, it can be large to small.
Yeah.
And I think some of them are starting to understand that. So I think anybody read the book Tipping Point by Malcolm Gladwell? I think we're kind of nudging our way towards that. And we all know the tipping point's not at 50%. It's like at 30%, right? Based on that book. So we're starting to see that demand come back, starting to see that airline interest come back, and the bow could just flip over here with just a little bit of good luck. So the time's now for everybody to redouble their efforts to fly out of Manchester. Yes, sir.
I like what you said that your first flight is in your car to Boston.
Or bus, whichever
Bus or rail. Do you think rail would affect the airport?
I think it could be a yes and a no to that. If I look at the zip codes around Durham and Dover, I lose 99% of the demand generated out of those zip codes because they can just catch the Downeaster. Well, there's a stop on the UNH campus. So I think it would hurt us, but at the same time, does it help bring people up here? Does it help rebalance, the export that we have of our talent to Massachusetts? Yeah. And can that lead to more demand? Yeah, I think the best thing we can do as a community, obviously build homes, solve the workforce problem, but then increase our mass transportation access to the airport itself. I'm hearing more and more, and when I'm speaking to community groups, there is no bus to the airport, even though we have Route 3 through MTA. We have, the National Express coming up from downtown Nashua that MTA is running. I don't think it's on the frequency that they need, and I've talked to Mike Whitten about that. Okay, his first bus I think is at 6 o'clock. I'm like, well, quarter of my day is already over. I've had 25% of my passengers go through it. All my employees have had to show up at 3 o'clock in the morning. Do you think this early would you? I mean, I dropped my daughter off this morning for a 4:30 flight. All those employees that I told her this, I said, all those employees you're dealing with had to show up at 3:30. The concessions employees, the TSA employees, the airline employees, they all have to be there, which means they have to drop their kids off if they can at 3. What childcare facility is open at 3 o'clock in the morning? So that's another one. Exactly. That's another thing we need to work on around the airport is a 24-hour daycare facility that is open for the workforce behind the workforce. Great questions, but I must move on. If you want, unless you just want to end the presentation here and keep going. Okay. All right. Strategic objectives. So I'm not going to read all this to you, but this is what our airport strategic plan looked like right after the pandemic. 5 core objectives. You can read those across the top, and a bunch of supporting, I guess you would call them projects. So the red checks, we've completed. So we think it's time now to start thinking of a new strategic plan. But life goes on, and we are certainly starting to scope the work for a 3-year strategic plan. But in the meantime, we've identified several things that we're working on as an airport. Those first two we'll talk about, as I mentioned earlier. We're looking at a better way to recapture spent de-icing fluid. We're looking at a brand audit for the airport. Is it still relevant? Is it still providing the value to the community? We're wrapping that up here shortly. We're wrapping up an airport economic impact study. The last time we did one was 2008. Things have changed slightly. It was more on that, and the airport master plan were on my short list of things to do when I got here in October of 18. 19 was really about trying to turn the employments around and starting the conversations with airlines. We all know what happened in 2020. So that kind of kicked things down the road a year and a half, 2 years. And we really wanted to wait till we had 3 solid years of a trajectory post-pandemic after it stabilized. So we know where our new reality is in the world. To be able to do an accurate economic impact study as well as have an accurate base year to base our airport forecast the claimants off of, which drives everything in the airport master plan. So we're probably scoping the master plan here in the next few months with the hopes of getting that started next summer. Obviously, we'll have technical advisory groups as well as stakeholder advisory groups, and we'll certainly include the DOT and the regional planning commissions and other stakeholders in that process. Last time we did an airport master plan, the same time we did the economic impact study. It was 2008 was the base year, 2010 was the year that we published the master plan. So it's time for it to be renewed. So real quick, and again, Alderman, this is
Understand.
This is not for any discussions. This just again more of us trying to quantify what the impact could be, and are we even ready to accommodate that impact. So the purpose of the electrification master plan really is to quantify long-term demand to inform effective policy decisions and implement those before the demand manifests, just like any study. So the questions that I was debating in my head are those: how significant is this increase going to be? We saw a lot of very quick ramp up, and the real genesis of this study was all 3 of our rental car families. And yes, there are only 3 rental car families. We got plenty of brands, but there's only 3: Hertz, Avis, and Budget. They all came to us within a 30-day period requesting level 2 chargers in the garage. And we're like, whoa. Okay, we're not just going to say yes, and you go to Eversource, and then you go to Eversource, and you go to Eversource. We're going to get our hands around this, try to quantify what this demand is. And we're all going to go to Eversource as a group. We're going to go as an airport and say, this is what we need. Okay, so I was really trying to get our hands around that, because we saw a very large spike in interest from the rental car families putting electric vehicles into, and this was not just Manchester, this was at every airport across the United States. And Avis is the one that really started it. Hertz threw gas on the fire, no pun intended. And then Enterprise was kind of sitting back in the background. Not really saying too much, but we knew they weren't going to just walk away from the market and allow Hertz and Avis to have 100% of the EV market. So AECOM is finalizing the master plan right now. We brought in Eversource very early into the process. I had several meetings with Doug Foley and said, hey, I need your commitment that you're going to be a partner in this, because we need to have an open book here. We need to be able to talk freely, openly about what this demand is, what your capacities are at the substations, and what your transmission and generation capacity is in the state. So what's driving it? Well, it's important to note that airports are multimodal facilities by design, right? We get you from ground to air and air to ground. The pursuit of net zero goals by a whole host of people in the industry. It started with the vehicles, electric POVs, electric rental cars. We do separate those two. We don't just wrap them up as EVs, because they have different demand profiles. Think about your rental car. You throw the keys, you walk away. Somebody else has the keys, they can move the car around. If you plug in your electric vehicle, your personal EV, and you're gone for 5 days, you're consuming piece of infrastructure for a much longer period of time than your car takes to charge. So they have completely different demand profiles, so we need to split them and treat them as three different entities. You got the aircraft, such as the Leah aircraft, being developed by Beta, being looked at as part of the biofabrication cluster here in Manchester. So where are those going to get charged? We would like to think that's going to be at the airport. We also have Aviation's Alice aircraft, which is that middle picture on the right. That's not CG, folks. That is real. That thing is flying. Cape Air has bought 100 of those things. And then ground support equipment such as the bag tugs and the pushback tractors and everything you see outside the window when you're sitting on the ground. So like I said, Cape Air is pushing this. UPS has bought 100 of those Alita aircraft. You can see that aircraft in the upper right hand corner, if you squint really hard, is painted in UPS colors. They've actually have visited Manchester as part of their Flight Forward program. That is looking at the new types of technologies to reach the smaller airports like Presque Isle and Rutland and Porterville, all throughout New England. Right now, all the small turboprops that you hear buzzing around late at night, those will be hopefully replaced at some point by these Alita aircraft. So this is the demand profile. We got low, medium, high, and the base load. Just to kind of point it out, the forecast is going from 3.8 megawatts to close to 24. So that's a 7 to 8 fold increase in demand in the local distribution network. We are looking at as part of our development roadmap, putting an EPOB parking lot. But if we do that, you're going to have to see our valet service, which has not been launched yet, but that is on a roadmap with our parking operator. And you have to give your keys to them so they can move your car when it's done. Okay, so Salt Lake City did this without the valet, and they're finding that they had to way overbuild on infrastructure. And it's causing a lot of problems out at the new terminal in Salt Lake City. So by driver, you can see I won't go through all these, but the base load is the blue section of the stack bar. You see that goes from 60% to 10%. You see the vehicles are the driver and the intermediate and the short term, which are the two columns right there, kind of left of center. And then that's going to be the primary driver. And then they kind of shrink down to about 30%. And then you see the aircraft, which is the green portion of the column, really being the demand driver. So we looked at mitigation strategies. So think of this, all baby boomers and Gen Xers. Remember the Ram McNally mileage charts in the back of the paper atlas? I used to stare at those things for hours. I love those things. So think of this as like that. Okay, so these are just two sets or series of mitigation strategies: our valet service, smart charging, the solar photovoltaic that's on top of the garage. We expand that, and then BESS, which is battery energy storage systems. So they're plotted against each other to figure out what's the most optimal mitigation bundle, and it's smart charging combined with an expansion of the solar EV network there at the airport. And the consultant figured that's about $32.4 million in net savings over a 10-year period because of the demand profile that smart charging allows you to charge during off periods versus during peak periods. Any questions on that? Yes, ma'am.
Thank you for that. And I think I'm a little bit behind the 8 ball because you sort of moved into the airline while I was looking at stuff on cars, because you were talking about the rental cars coming to you with a demand for EV charging, and the commission just did a thing on EV charging stations.
Yeah.
The reality is, isn't there a rental car agency who's getting rid of all his EV cars? And isn't the demand for EV cars like going in the tank?
There it is. I think the
So-
line is still up to the right. It may have been bent a little bit. Hertz is the only one that really got about 20,000 Teslas.
Right, but all of them are.
I haven't heard anything from Davis.
So the demand, so in early 20s, 2 to 4 years ago, there was a big push for this kind of use.
Yeah.
And the reality is it just hasn't panned out. So, all right, let's take Hertz as the first one. So given some bills that are federally being suggested as to EVs, knowing the expense of these level 2 charging stations, are we planning on using up a lot of space for stuff that isn't gonna have a long-term use?
Well, this is just a study right now, so
Okay.
again, there's no policy decisions, so part of any plan is you don't build until the demand materializes, or at least you have a pretty good idea that it's materializing. Certainly, the decision about Hertz is making us think that maybe we're not on that high growth, maybe we're a little bit on that low growth, but even if you go back to the low growth scenario, it doesn't, eliminate the problem of the fact that we're going from 2.5 megawatts to 10. I doubt Eversource can support that out of the substations that they have feeding the airport. So there's still going to be a discussion about how do we increase the electricity that's flowing to the fence.
Right, especially since Eversource isn't a generator more than
Right.
just a distributor.
Exactly.
Okay.
So.
Okay, I mean, I'm just sort of looking at your trend lines.
Yeah.
Going,
I mean, when we started, I kind of thought maybe we were on the aqua, but now maybe I'm thinking we're on that darker aqua on the slow growth scenario, somewhere in between the yellow and the green.
Just
I
one.
mean, we're certainly going to take a cautious approach, because these are investments, right, that we're going to have to make. And then we're going to have to change our business models with our fleet parks, right, to recoup that expense.
So I'm trying to be aware of time, and
Yes.
I respect the questions you have for Ted, but he has more to do, and maybe some of it, if he's available after the meeting, you might be able to.
Absolutely, yes. All right, so the last thing is our carbon accreditation. So this again is just a way for us to be able to quantify our GHG. So we know that there's a growing societal awareness of climate change. I mean, it's a very much a generational thing. There's a Pew report that I read that really kind of opened my eyes that it's not just a generational thing. No, actually, no, it is a generational thing. It's not a party affiliation. Even if you look within other parties or the two major parties, it's not a right versus a left. It's a young versus an old change. It's just a different way of viewing the world. So as those generations continue to come of age, problems are going to, the pressures are going to continue to increase on airports. So we said, hey, let's just at least get our hands around what we were generating. So the ACA study just identifies scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. For those who don't know what scope 1 is, those are ones that we're directly responsible for, like our vehicles at the airport. Scope 2 emissions are emissions associated with the energy that we're buying from Eversource. So the GHGs that they're emitting. And then there's a scope 3, which is outside the purview of the first phase 1 study, which is everything that's induced from airport activities. So the actual GHG emissions from that flight going from Manchester to Raleigh-Durham, right? So where we are right now is in level 1, which is mapping. There are 6 different levels to the airport carbon accreditation. So we're in level 1 mapping. There are a few airports in the United States that are in the transition phase, particularly Dallas and Phoenix. So both of those are American airline hubs, and American Airlines is our largest airline out of the Manchester airport in terms of flights. So another reason why we decided to at least quantify this, because that's the language that they're speaking, and that's what they want to see out of their airport partners. So airport carbon accreditation mapping results, we generated about 5.7, 5,700 tons. A majority of that, 60% is scope 1, so that falls within direct airport control. You can see a majority of that based on the waterfall graph. The first 2 lines, about 3,000, but actually 27,000 pounds or 2,700 pounds of the 3,440 are for power, including our emergency generators. The rest are refrigerants that we use for our rooftop units, our vehicles, and de-icing activities. Are smaller pieces, and then you can see how much the scope 2 is from Eversource. So moving forward, I think our focus is going to be on controlling the controllables. So that's really scope 1. And we really don't have the ability to affect the first 2, the 2 big ones. But we do have the ability to maybe look at some of our older rooftop units, getting rid of those. In fact, we've applied for 2 federal grants in the past 2 federal grant cycles, and were denied the last 2 times to replace some of the rooftop units that are still on R12. Believe it or not, we have those, particularly ones on top of the pedestrian bridge. Our vehicles, and then our de-icing activities, mostly associated with not de-icing aircraft. That'd be more on the scope 3. This is more our snow removal on the airfield where we use potassium formate and potassium acetate to help clear the runway of any ice or compacted snow.
And keep the airport open.
And keep the airport open. Exactly. So that's the end of my presentation. I know it went long. So
Cool stuff.
hopefully you found it informative and I will be more than happy.
You're still within time.
Oh, I am. Wow.
Okay.
Okay.
I got one question on the freight side for you.
Mhm.
I referred to the warehouse that you partnered with and built as Amazon.
Yeah.
And people have told me, I'm working at company ABC, nothing about Amazon. Can you, just for the record,
Yeah.
what is the name of that warehouse?
So
and the jobs with it?
Yeah, so that was built by a company called ADJOURNMENT at the time, which is one of the largest warehouse developers on the airports in the world. They changed their name to Real Term. So they're the owner, that's our direct lease agreement is with. They then sublease out to the Amazon. So who Amazon is using to move the packages is a company called Trago Duke, which is
That's the name, right?
so that's a ground handler. And honestly, it's good. When I got here, we had one ground handler on the airfield, and that was a DGS, it was a Delta. So if you think about airlines, they're outsourcing as much, they want as much competition like we all do whenever we are shopping around for quotes or doing RFPs or something. If you have one person on the airfield, are you gonna get the best price? No. So when we got Spirit, we got a second ground handler, and when we got Real Term, we got a third ground handler. That has actually paid dividends because Breeze selected Trago Dugan as their ground handler for their flights. So that company is handling all the aircraft movements. They do all the pushbacks and everything else. They create now, I think it's 300 employees that work there.
Very good paying jobs, I'm told.
$18.50 per hour with benefits, full-time, guaranteed. And during the holidays, I think they go up to $20.50. So you're looking at what, $45,000 to load boxes on an airplane with benefits. That's pretty good.
Additional questions in the room? Additional questions from those calling in?
But one thing, Alderman, 90% of those jobs are in New Hampshire and 60% of those are out of Manchester last time I checked.
Yeah, you have a
I
question?
just wonder, what kind of information on your website that will follow up on some of these things you brought up?
Well, as we publish the studies and finalize them, both of these are still being finalized that I mentioned. We will put those underneath public plans and information. Yeah.
I have two questions. First of
Yes, sir.
all, do you see P's becoming a competitor to Manchester?
No.
Okay. What, have you ever, and what would it take to install a customs installation in Manchester to become an international airport?
Well, technically, we are one now, because we do have customs for GA, we don't have so your corporate aviation that's coming across the big jet.
Yeah, okay.
We do have customs on the field, so we can technically call ourselves international, that's the only requirement. I don't think that's quite right, but we can do it. Everybody likes to say they don't like Boston in our name, the word that really grinds my gears is regional. I don't like that, because that just it denotes, two gates, maybe a mom and pop concession stand, and maybe the runways are lit. I don't know. All right, it just that word bothers me more than Boston, right? So if we could change that to maybe national airport, like Reagan National, right? You know, that has a little bit of a different connotation to it. So that's all what's going to come out of the brand audit. If there's a recommendation for rebranding, that will certainly come before the alderman and the mayor. To answer your question, that's going to be about a $50 million project, I think, to build one. We have the space to do it.
What would be the income derived from that, from that investment?
It's hard to say. I don't know quite yet. I haven't gotten past the cost of using it.
Okay.
It would be, I don't have the body capacity right now. I'm trying to get rid of our bonds. As much as I can, and maybe we can cash flow one day, but that'd be ideal. But I don't know if the airlines will allow us to hold on to that much cash.
Okay.
But I would need a significant long-term investment or commitment by an airline, not just the 5-year current commitment that we have. I'm talking 15 to 20-year commitment. If they want to sign a lease for that long, then maybe we have some skin in the game.
This is good. Sylvia.
Peter, I just want to take a little moment here to check in with Jessica Wilcox. Having, I hope, still at your seats and hearing the EV study. And don't know if you have any thoughts, but I would really love, Ted, if I know DOT and DES have EV program. Barbara mentioned that and would love to be able to forward your EV needs to them or somehow make sure that you're all on the same page. But I see our bewitching hour is up and I know that
I was in time, sir.
Bill had an
Yeah,
announcement.
they just talked, so I know.
Bill had an announcement he wanted to make.
Yeah, real quick, my company is presenting a forum in conjunction with the New England Real Estate Journal. If you're not familiar with what's going on in the mill yard, New Hampshire's been designated as the Regen Valley Tech Hub, one of the few tech hubs across the country. And we've assembled a panel, let me pass those around. It's gonna have regional impact, it's not just Manchester. So all the communities that touch Manchester are gonna be impacted by the growth out of this industry for, you've heard Ted mention it a couple times, even in his talk, the biofabrication manufacturers, including Damon's big initiative. Feel free to jump on the Army Biofab website. You can see the panelists we've assembled. We have Manchester's Economic Development Director, Jody Nazar's on the panel. Someone from Army Biofab, Julie Lesner. We have New Hampshire Life Sciences on there as well. It's going to be moderated by Mike Skelton, who some of you may know. He's the executive director for BIA. And if you're inclined, there can be a tremendous amount of information there. Not to be beneficial for everybody in this pollution times. Thank you going on.
Any other?
I apologize. I have to get one.
Thank you.
Yes. Just a closing question for Ted. Is there anything that the airport needs or that Southern New Hampshire Planning Commission could be doing to help the airport beyond what we're already doing? Is there any way we could be a better partner to the airport or do something more to help the airport?
I appreciate the question, and honestly, I think we started the entire presentation with, we have a very good collaborative working relationship as it is. I will say that as part of the alternative fuels corridor, that the NHDOT is doing, I would love to see, I know we're probably just a smidge outside the 1 mile buffer. I think it's 1 mile from interstates, right? We may just be just a little bit outside that buffer, but I think if we could put some more public facing chargers there at the airport, I would be very happy to have those. We do see a lot of people that do come in and use the 4 chargers we have right there in Lot A because it's free electricity, but it only takes 30 minutes to charge and you do have to pay the parking, but it's only $8. And you can't get a full charge for $8 out and a DCFC like at the mall, which is usually about $30. So if we can have more, not necessarily behind a gate arm, but more just in the public side, I would support that.
Thank you so much. Thank you, Greg. I appreciate it. Sylvia, very quickly, do you want to comment on the need for personnel committee members?
We need personnel. I don't know that there's anything pressing right now. We just had a good meeting with our budget committee and I thank those for spending that time. I'm not sure that we have, I mean, certainly Nate and I have, I think we agree we need to review our personnel plan and that kind of thing, but at the moment, it's not on the front burner, so it's always good to have. What I'd really like to get is someone on the building committee, and I don't know if
We have a building committee.
do we?
You do, ma'am.
Thank you. Dan says we have a building committee, so I'm not worried about that. Linda did it. Of course she did.
And then you were.
Then she went, all right.
Okay, any closing commissioner insights or public comments? Going once, going twice, could I have a motion to adjourn this? Second? All those in favor? Thank you.
Thanks, everybody, for your time. Ah.